He's a brick wall. Just another brick in the wall. The nice thing about being bad at singing is that I do not have to worry about copyrights. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Seattle Kraken win 2-1 in regulation over the LA Kings in LA. And yes, it is the first win for the Kraken this season, where they score fewer than 4 goals, which could be part of the reason for their trouble so far, but this one comes in large part thanks to Joey Daccord, who saves a career-high 43 of 44 shots on net. Now, sure, from a neutral perspective, it might not have been the most entertaining game to watch between LA's suffocating neutral zone play and the Kraken keeping everything to the outside in the defensive end, but from a Kraken fan perspective, oh yeah, this one was fun to watch. Well, I suppose with that being said, thanks to the goal that should have never happened for LA, it did at least get interesting towards the end of the game, maybe too interesting for my taste, but still, the Kraken come out with the 2 points and a much-needed victory, as they now pick up points in each of their last 5 games, and have 4 points in this stretch of LA, Dallas, LA, which, if you'd told me that going in, even if 2 of them are losses, I would have happily taken it. So what do you say we just jump right into it? After getting through the notable lineup changes for the Kraken after the last game, and there were a few. Belmar goes to the IR, so now that's 3 Kraken forwards on the IR. McCann fortunately did not, so that's at least a good sign. He's now day-to-day, and I kind of don't think they'll rush him back for the Anaheim game. I mean, if he's ready, he'll play, but I would imagine that if he's fighting something, they probably just give him that game, as it's one the Kraken probably should be able to win without him, and then he also gets the 3-day Christmas break on top of the extra break from missing these 2 games. So then with both of them out, that did mean the Kraken had to make a call-up, and finally it's Cole Lynn's turn to come up from Coachella Valley and play his first game for the Kraken this season. And actually, I think the first game for him since the end of the inaugural season. I don't think he played at all for the Kraken last year, even in spite of playing very well for the Firebirds. I didn't really notice him a ton in this game, but the fourth line didn't get a lot of minutes, with Shore also back in the lineup. And then on the defensive end, well, Evans gets his first healthy scratch, and maybe it's just a rest day for the rookie, not trying to overwork him with the heavy NHL schedule that the Kraken have been facing here. Plus, the game in Dallas for him was not his best game, so just give him an extra day to kind of catch a breath and probably come back against the Ducks, although with how things went in this game, maybe they don't make lineup changes for that one. So yes, that does then mean that Schultz and Dumoulin are back paired together, and we have the same 6 defensemen and same 3 pairings that we've been used to for most of the season before Evans came up. As we get going in the first period then, well, this first period did kind of set the tone for what this game would turn out to be. That was largely the Joey Daccord show, as by the end of one, it's still scoreless, but the Kings are out shooting the Kraken. I think the final shot total was 21-8. Going into intermission, I think it was 20-6, but they do some official scoring changes. So the Kraken, either way, are getting vastly outshot in that first period. Though, for what it's worth, the Kings were being kept completely to the outside in that first period, and while they were getting a ton of shots, the Kraken defensively were once again doing a fantastic job of keeping everything to the outside, not allowing the Kings to really get any traffic whatsoever towards the middle of the ice, and giving Joey clean lanes to look at those shots coming in so he could make relatively easy saves. Aside from one that he makes in the final 30 seconds of the period on a 2-on-1 rush, the Kings get their best chance of it, trying to score here going into the locker room, but Daccord is able to dive back, get the blocker up just in time to get a piece of it, and have it ring off the metal behind him, keeping that one out, and again maintaining that shutout through the first period. Meanwhile, at the other end of the ice, while the Kraken didn't have a ton of chances, the few and far between chances they did get were at least better quality than what the Kings were getting, so as long as they could keep that up offensively and maybe limit the Kings' shots a little bit more, it felt like they still had a chance to get that first goal of the game, and then from there, who knows? And it looks like they're going to get a chance to do just that as we get started in the second period. The first power play of the game goes the Kraken way as Cartier gets tripped in the Kraken end of the ice, but about 30 seconds in, Yamamoto gets caught for tripping, so it goes to 4-on-4. None of that leads to a goal, but as we get back to 5-on-5, the Kraken finally get some good pressure in the offensive end for, I guess, kind of the second time this game. They did have a couple of shifts towards the end of the first period that went pretty well, but they get some momentum, get a couple shots on goal. Eventually, a puck out of play leads to a face-off in the LA Kings end of the ice, and while the Kings do win the faceoff, it goes between the feet of, I don't know which Kings player it was, it might have been Fiala. Either way, it's Tanev who's right there to whack the puck out from between his feet, right at the net. The shot on goal is saved by Talbot, but it bounces right out, and Tanev goes right to the net, picks that puck up, and roofs it into the back to give the Kraken the 1-0 lead with the unassisted goal, Tanev's third of the season. And it did kind of help make up for Tanev that he missed a chance to get a breakaway in the first period. There was a puck out in front of him while he had a step on the two LA defenders, but he just kind of overskated the puck and mishandled it a bit, so it actually didn't even lead to a shot on goal. But he gets his goal here. And for that matter, he nearly scores again just a couple minutes later when a puck gets behind Talbot, leaking through him off of a Yamamoto shot from right in front of the net. And Yamamoto, I thought, had a quietly good game, even though he doesn't get on the score sheet. Unfortunately, Talbot does see the puck leak through him, falling behind him into the crease, so he's able to dive back, throwing his stick aside, and gets his blocker hand to it, just as Tanev gets his stick blade to it behind Talbot. And unfortunately, arms do tend to be stronger than sticks, so Talbot wins that battle and is able to keep the puck out. And really, from that point on through the end of the second period, or close to the end of the second period, not much of anything happens as far as dangerous scoring chances for either team. Again, the Kings are doing their thing in the neutral zone, really limiting the Kraken chances the other way, although actually not limiting them that much. The Kraken do end up with, I think, 19 shots in this second period, which is the same amount that they got through all of regulation and overtime in the meeting in Seattle just a couple games ago. So a pretty good second period as far as shot quantity is concerned from the Kraken, but not a ton of quality other than the one that Tanev scores on and then the other one that he almost scored on. Meanwhile, the Kings, while they're also getting their shot attempts, not as many, but I think 16 in the second period, so still a fair amount, getting to 36 between the first two periods. Once again, the Kraken are doing a very good job of keeping everything to the outside defensively and making Daccord's job relatively easy. And that does include an LA power play midway through this period that doesn't really go anywhere for the Kings. I don't even know if they get a shot on net. They end up with, I think, 3 full power play chances in this game, plus the sliver of one after the 4-on-4, so technically 4 power plays. Kraken blanked them on the power play, and really did not allow very many shots on goal. In fact, I think the Kings might have only gotten 1 or 2 shots across those 4 power plays. And probably the best scoring chance they got was on that sliver after the end of the 4-on-4. But while the Kings really aren't able to get much of anything going on their power play opportunity here late in the second period, the Kraken are able to create some momentum and get a few good scoring chances and a few shots off on net when they get a power play, finishing off the final 2 minutes of the period almost exactly. I think they had 1, maybe 2 seconds roll over into the start of the third period, but essentially they finished the second period with the final 2 minutes on the power play and do get a lot of good pressure, but are not able to score. So we head to the third period with the Kraken still maintaining that 1-0 lead, even though they are still being somewhat significantly outshot by the Kings. I guess they had closed things up a little bit in the second period, but they're still being outshot. I'm pretty sure it was 27-37 after 2 frames. Still, for what it's worth with the Kraken, even if it hasn't always felt this way so far this season, they have been pretty good when it comes to entering third periods with a lead. I think it was a 8-0-3 record, or maybe 6-0-3. Either way, they'd at least come away with points every game that they'd entered a third period with a lead. And as we get into the third period, the Kraken just pick up right where they left off at 5-on-5 in the second, and honestly the entire game so far, as they lock down their end of the ice. And while the Kings do continue and really do spend a lot of this third period in the Kraken end with the puck, the Kraken are playing aggressively defensively in that they're not allowing the Kings to really get very far off the blue line or boards with the puck, and certainly not allowing them to get any kind of traffic to the middle of the ice or shots off from there. So while Daccord has been busy, his job has relatively been somewhat easy. And yes, I know that I've already said that or something like it a few times already, but there's a reason for that. It's to point out that the Kraken continued to play this way the entire 60 minutes of this game and didn't have what really has plagued them to this point, or at least through the first 30 games of the season, where they would play that well defensively through a period or maybe even 2, but then have 1 period where they just completely got sloppy and loose with it and allowed a lot of dangerous chances. That just really did not happen in this game. Meanwhile, back the other way, the Kraken still are getting their chances, though a lot more like the first period, and maybe even more so. They're pretty few and far between. In fact, I think by the end of the third, the Kraken only managed to get 3, maybe 4 shots on goal in this period. Though I think they had more chances than that lets on, the Kings were just doing an equally good job of playing defense in their end of the ice and just actually not even allowing the Kraken to get much as far as shots to the net are concerned. Fortunately, though, one of those chances for the Kraken a few minutes into this third is all they would need, as Beniers with a beauty of a pass all the way through the neutral zone from the Kraken end of the ice and through Doughty's legs on the way, catches Eberle in stride on the far blue line for a breakaway. Eberle skates in and buries it into the back of the net. I got caught between fires it and buries it, but he beats Talbot over the glove hand and into the net to give the Kraken the 2-0 lead. Beniers his 13th assist of the season with that incredible pass, Eberle his 4th goal of the season, and the Kraken have a 2-0 lead. I guess ferries it into the net would work, considering the Kraken have a fairy horn for their goal horn, but I guess it works a little bit better at home. Either way, an exciting goal, and one that really seemed like it could be the difference maker, considering how well the Kraken have been playing in their end of the ice. Though I think it's fairly safe to say that most, if not all, Kraken fans would have been perfectly happy if this was not the deciding goal. I know, at least for me, my focus did shift a little bit after this Eberle goal to looking for Daccord's potential second NHL shutout. Unfortunately, that was taken from him just a couple minutes later, and on a Kraken power play that they get not that long after this second goal goes in, so it's looking pretty good that the Kraken are at least going to be able to kill off a couple minutes of clock, if not score a third one to really put this game away. But within the first 30 seconds, I think it was, of this power play, the Kings are able to clear it. Daccord goes out to play it, which every goaltender would do. Any goaltender in the NHL that has functional legs would have gone out to play this puck, and I know Daccord does go out to play pucks a lot more than most goaltenders do, because he's very good at it. In fact, he went out to play a puck that very few goaltenders would do earlier on in this game, and by doing so, set the Kraken up for a 3-on-1 chance the other way. They did score on that chance, but it was Daccord that gave them one of their, again, pretty few good scoring opportunities of the game. Unfortunately, this time when he goes out to play it though, he has no one really around him. He does have a King player coming up the boards towards him, so he fires it down along the boards around behind the net to the other side where Schultz is waiting. Unfortunately though, just like what happened in that game in Florida, although Daccord did actually touch the puck this time and it didn't bounce off the boards and go out in front of the net before it came to him, this time it takes a weird bounce off the boards, then off Schultz's stick, and goes right to Lizotte before Daccord can get back. Lizotte fires off the shot, and although Daccord did get close with the head first dive, it ends up in the back of the net. Of course, that does break up Daccord's shutout, one that I really do feel like he deserved to have in this game, but gets robbed of off of a second terrible bounce off of the boards, and helped a little bit by Schultz this time, so not completely off the boards like the one in Florida. But it also brings the Kings back to within one and makes the last 11 minutes of this game much more interesting than they needed to be. The good news at least is that the Kraken do not allow this turn of terrible luck that gets the Kings on the board to phase them, cause them to panic or play sloppy in any sort of way, as they continue to play very well defensively in their end of the ice, aside from Schultz taking a penalty a few minutes later. A not great stretch from him between the puck going off of his stick to give them the shorthanded goal and then going into the box to give the Kings another chance on the power play to tie things up. Fortunately, like I said, the Kraken really did not let the Kings get much of anything going on the power play. They do get this chance, and then after pulling their goaltender with about 3 minutes left, they get another chance with about 2.5 minutes left on the power play. They go 6-on-4 for that entire time, but in that 6-on-4, the Kraken do not allow them to get a single shot on goal. The Kraken also don't get a shot on goal, which would have led to a goal since the net was empty. A couple of chances, I think Wemberg and Tanev both fired pucks towards the end of the ice, but just missed the net, and that did almost feel like it was going to give the Kings a chance to tie things up. But I mean, really, even in spite of the 6-on-5, never mind the 6-on-4 for 2 minutes, the Kraken never even allowed it to get close for the Kings. The puck never even really makes it up towards the net for any kind of hack and whack or anything like that, like you'll often see like panicking towards the end of the last few seconds. The Kraken just constantly clear the puck, and even if they don't hit the empty net, they waste a ton of time, and in the end, they waste all of it getting to that final horn, and the Kraken pulling out the 2-1 win. And once again, what a win it is for the Kraken, picking up 2 points in regulation against one of the best teams in the NHL in their building. And yes, I know the Kings have actually been somewhat mediocre. They're actually, after this loss to the Kraken, now under 500 at home so far this point, doing most of their damage on the road, 13-1-1 on the road. But for the Kraken, either way, coming in and beating one of the best teams in the NHL, in fact, analytically, the best team at 5-on-5 in the NHL, and picking up 3 points in 2 games in a 3-game stretch against them is honestly fantastic and exactly what this team needed. We talked about how over the last couple of games, even that they had picked up overtime loss points, they really did need, after the slow start to the season, to start getting 2 points per game in the standings, and that's just what they do here. And obviously they also do it in a way that they had not won to this point in the season, which is encouraging as well, by playing solid defense, allowing Daccord to do his thing in net and come away with the win, even though they only scored 2 the other way. The big story in this game is Daccord with those 43 saves, a career high for him on 44 shots. And again, I really feel like he deserved the shutout. He just gets victimized by a bad bounce, and Schultz not playing the puck particularly cleanly on the other end of that pass. But still a fantastic game from him. And I know that I said a few times that the defense in front of him was playing very well and structured and making his job easy, but that's not to take anything away from what he did. 43 saves is not easy no matter where they're coming from, and he did have that one fantastic save at the end of the first period where if that goes in, who knows how different this game could have looked with the Kraken playing from behind, which they didn't have to do at any point. And besides, for what it's worth, even if a lot of those saves that he was making were relatively easy ones with clean shooting lanes from the outside, he was doing a fantastic job at controlling rebounds, or in general, just not allowing them whatsoever. And that does go a long way to the good defense for the Kraken, as Daccord wasn't allowing any second opportunities to even be possible from those dangerous areas. Anytime he did let up a rebound, it was pushed out to the corner where a second chance isn't going to go in the net. And the vast majority of the time, he was freezing the puck and forcing a face-off, where then the Kraken have a chance to at least force the Kings to get reset up and try to cycle from the outside again, if not win the face-off and then get control themselves. And you know what? That might as well carry us right into the Kraken 3 stars. As always, brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you want to be a part of helping decide these stars, you can help support the channel a little bit more than you already are by watching to this point by going to the link down below to Patreon and supporting over there as well. And obviously, the first star in this game has to be Joey Daccord. Everything that I just mentioned, the record 43 saves, a shutout that he honestly deserved, but gets victimized by the boards for a second time this season. And yeah, just an incredible game from him, and honestly, an incredible stretch from him. He has been very good for the Kraken ever since Grubauer went down. Second star, well, Patreon made it pretty clear that Tanev is the second star in this game, and he honestly did have a fantastic game for the Kraken in this one. Obviously gets them on the board first with that goal at the start of the second period, a tenacious play where he just is first to the puck off of the faceoff. The Kings win that faceoff, but Tanev's the first one to it, gets the shot off, and then follows it up with the rebound chance, scoring there. And he had a couple of other chances throughout the game as well. Obviously has the one taken off of his stick by Talbot, and I guess kind of flubbed his other really good chance that could have been a breakaway in the first. Either way, he was fantastic the entire time. It was also a big part of the Kraken, not only on the penalty kill, but in those empty net scenarios towards the end of the game. And then with the third star, again, understandably, since he was the second goal scorer, Eberle and also Gord were both popular over on Patreon, but I am going to go off the board here and go with Will Borgen. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, Borgen was undeniably fantastic in this game for the Kraken, and I think it's important to point that out after a game that was tough, at least in that first period, for the pairing of he and Alexiak. And for what it's worth, Alexiak was also very good in this game. Borgen does at least get an assist, the secondary on Eberle's goal, so I'll give him the tiebreaker over Alexiak. But after that tough first period that they had, they were able to rebound for the rest of that game in Dallas, and then were fantastic once again, like they have been for the majority of the season, in this game in LA. And I did feel like with this being a game where the defense in particular stood out for the Kraken, I had to include at least one defenseman in these 3 stars. And yes, Borgen did end up in the penalty box at the end of the game, which is what gave the Kings that chance for the 6-on-4. But even there, I think he got a bit victimized as his stick got actually shoved into the face of Fiala by Fiala's stick. And although I think it was still accidental on Fiala's part, he wasn't trying to get Borgen to hit him in the face. It wasn't really Borgen's fault that he had that high stick and ended up in the box. And then real quick here, I did also want to mention Matty Beniers had another fantastic game for the Kraken, obviously with it being low scoring, largely because of how the Kings were playing the other way. Beniers only gets on the scoreboard once, but it was with an incredible pass to set up Eberle for that breakaway, so a primary assist. And even outside of that, Beniers was everywhere anytime the Kraken did have offensive chances. He honestly, I felt, was the best forward in this game for the Kraken. Yeah, it wasn't the most offensive game. He also was fantastic in the defensive end. Obviously a big part of the penalty kill, especially with McCann missing, and was out there for that odd man chance at the end of the game as well. But as always, I'd love to know what you think down in the comment section below, who your 3 stars of this game would be, and how we're feeling about the Kraken now that they've picked up some points here in their last 5 games and are starting to get closer to that NHL 500, which in the West might very well be at least close to enough to get one of those wildcard spots. Now, at least for me, we're still a couple games away from talking about the Kraken being back in the playoff hunt, and they definitely need to take care of business against Anaheim here in the final game before the Christmas break. But it is a good trend that the Kraken have going, as they've now played very well in 4 of their last 5 games and played pretty complete games in them. And honestly played pretty well in that 5th one in Dallas as well, even if the first period wasn't necessarily a full 60-minute type of effort. Until the next one, though, in Anaheim before Christmas, as always, if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below that help support the channel. Like and subscribe, of course. I'd appreciate you using them. And until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken!